Welcome to Heritage of Truth. Today our guest is Mynheir.
Inside your armor, don't remove. Stand up for truth when wrong seems right. Convictions must be strong. Pierce the darkness with the light as you go along. Living with one foot in heaven, breaking the enemy's power. In the strength of Jesus we can stand in the darkest hour. Living with one foot in heaven, ready when he calls our name. For believers to live is Christ, to die is only gain.
Welcome to Heritage of Truth. Today our guest is Mynheir. Did I pronounce it properly?
Yes, actually you did, yes.
Now Mark is a novelist. Show us this book, The Corruptible. How many books does this make?
This is my fifth book.
Your fifth book?
Fifth novel out, yes.
And what genre is it?
Mystery suspense in the Christian market.
Mystery suspense. And how did you come to write mystery suspense?
Oh wow, I've been a police officer for 23 years now. I've recently retired, but I still do cold case work. And just through shortly after I was converted, I became a Christian, which is about 18 years ago. I felt God leading me to write, and so I started learning the craft because there's a lot to learn, and started growing as a writer, and eventually just led into writing articles. And my first novel sold and was published. And
what was that called?
Rolling Thunder.
Rolling Thunder.
Yes.
Good title. Okay, so as a former police officer, you've seen a lot of what the breakdown in our culture has caused.
Yes.
In the culture. So
absolutely.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, most of our police work and most of the stuff that we're dealing with as a society and a culture really does revolve around the breaking down the family. It's not a cliche, it's not something you're just saying, it's something that I've seen and most police officers have seen firsthand. When you have rampant drug abuse, when you have violence, and these kind of things, you can almost always associate it back to a person's family life and how they were raised or weren't raised. There is a caveat. Sometimes people coming from good and even Christian homes can go bad. But as a police officer, that's extremely rare. It does happen, but it is rare. Most of the time what I've seen, and my fellow officers have seen, is when there's not a spiritual leader in the home, and the father doesn't take that role of spiritual leader, and that doesn't mean to be domineering, but when he comes in and loving and loves his wife and loves his children and puts God first in his life, when that doesn't happen, it just causes chaos in the home. And then the breakdown and what happens after that, it can be devastating. Again, not every child that grows up in this environment is going to go into crime or drugs or anything like that, but it leaves an emotional and psychological scar that does take many years to heal. And it's just, after so many years of watching this and going from home to home and, interviewing people who were criminals and talking about, their life and how they got there and stuff, almost invariably you can trace it back to their home life, no spiritual moorings, no father there to help love them and discipline them and give them the guidance they need.
Now for fathers who might be watching, what recommendations do you have for them?
First, be on your knees. Love God. Love God first. And when I first became a Christian, I didn't know, my son was young, my marriage was young. I didn't know if I could put God above my wife and child. But I said, God, I'm going to do it. I don't know how to do it. You got to help me. And God showed me through that if I sought to love Him first and most, that it's like the rising tide raises all boats. Because of that, I was able to love my wife and child in a way that I don't think I would be able to had God not been the priority of my life. It's not like you're taking something away by loving God most and first. He is increasing your ability to love. And then you love your wife and you love your children and you be there for them through good times and bad.
Because you're loving with the love that He gives you.
Absolutely. It's the love He gives you. It's supernatural. He gives you this love. He gives you the ability to love your family. But you put Him first always, and then you put your wife and children. They have to be that priority. Not job, not status, not playtime, not anything else. And it's not always easy. It's not saying that Christians don't have a more difficult role or a difficult role in society. Absolutely. The temptations are there. Everything is there that's in the secular family as well, or somebody who's not seeking to follow God. But the difference is we have God on our side. And we understand and know the truth. And if we don't acknowledge that as men and take control and be in the home for our families, that's where the disruption really starts. Okay, so I really feel a burden as a husband and a father, and to share this with other men, that this is our role, this is what God put us here for, and we can't just walk out on our families or not guide them spiritually, and to just simply love them and to be there for them.
Can you give us any insight for the women in the audience, how we can be supportive of our husbands in that way when they're trying to do that?
Yeah, again, it's a flip side, because you need mother and father. Now, unfortunately, we can't always control that. If one spouse isn't on board, you know, and the other, you do the very best you can and you follow God, and that is the case in many of the cases. But if two people are committed to each other and to the marriage, and to make it work, they can make it work. And I think a wife's responsibility is to simply love and uplift her husband, just like her husband's responsibility is to love and uplift his wife. You know, when they can do that and they all put Christ as the center of that marriage, you know, then the focus stays off them. So at the times when we do upset each other and when we have those kind of rough moments and stuff like that, it's not terminal. You know, you can take a step back, you can be upset, that happens in life, but ultimately you realize that the commitment you made is before God. And when God is first, when you make that commitment to Him, there is no other option. You must love, forgive, and move on with your spouse. So I think it goes both ways. So I would say women just love and respect their husband, just like the husband should love and respect his wife. If they're mutually doing that, then they can overcome these trials that will come in their marriage and their lives.
Yeah, there are always going to be problems in a marriage, and you need to work through them, and you grow through that, and you grow closer together as a couple.
Yeah, I was very blessed. My wife was a police officer's wife for 21 of our 23 years, and she endured so many things. So late nights of me being called out on the SWAT team and going to very difficult situations, and I didn't realize this until later in our marriage when I was off the SWAT team. But whenever I would get called out, she would actually get up and pray for me. She couldn't sleep because to me it was just business. All right, well, I've got to go to work, But to her, she could never sleep after that. And I didn't find that out until later when I made the foolish idea of maybe I'll get back on SWAT, that I kind of got yelled at. She's like, I know, no. But that just shows that her level of commitment. But she never told me that because she didn't want to pull me away from what I felt I was called to do.
Yeah.
But it troubled her greatly. And I see that with my wife, and just what a wonderful blessing she's been in my life. Again, but there are the difficult times. We've gone through hard times. My schedule and police work and things that happen has caused friction and stuff. But when we both realize we're committed to the marriage, we're committed to God, and we're committed to the marriage. And when you understand that, yes, there is going to be difficulties. There is difficulties, but they will pass. And that the marriage will stand, and we will follow God.
Put your focus on God and the other person, and suddenly the problems don't seem as big, do they?
No, they really don't. When we get in focus is when we start to have problems and become selfish, and me, I want this, I demand this now, and and that's generally when a lot of trouble can creep in. But all marriage is difficult, all struggles are difficult, family life can be difficult. But if our focus is correct, God will walk us through those difficult times and make us better and stronger for it.
Yes.
One of the reasons why I actually took an early retirement, because I had one more year with my son.
Yeah.
And then I had my daughter and my youngest son coming up, and I thought, I'm never going to get that year back. It's not going to be any chance. So there's another book I'm in process of looking at, Son, Can We Talk? And I want to know that when my son goes off to college, I've communicated everything I can think of to him to guide him as a man. And there's just so important in talking about everything from sexual purity to moral behavior, to work ethic, all the things that I would want him to know how to handle himself, from everything, like say, from jobs to relationships to integrity, how to walk in integrity even when it hurts, and those kind of things. Have I perfectly lived it out in my life? No, but I can use some of my negative examples, hopefully, to help my son.
Right.
So, again, it's sobering to think one more year and he's out of the house and he's on his own. He's a man. He's accountable, now to himself and God. So it's just kind of strange,
And one thing that a lot of teens, I don't think, realize, they're also accountable to their future spouses.
Yes, and their behavior can negatively impact relationships. And they're not saying it can't be healed and these things can't be done, but relationships are hard enough as it is.
Yeah.
You don't want to carry a ton of baggage into it. You really don't. It makes more to have to deal with up front and to go, and it can be done. I don't want to say there's never the redemption that God heals these wounds, But man, if you don't have to walk that road, you don't really.
It's a whole lot better.
Yeah, you know, to walk, the less baggage you carry into the relationship, the better, and vice versa. So those are the things I hope to communicate to my children, and that's what I mean about men being men, and standing up and doing the right thing, and being not just in the home, not just providing a paycheck, but love, leadership, and all the things that a father should be expected to do. And I know they think it's kind of Pollyanna or you know, father knows best type stuff. No, I'm talking about being a man, being a dad in your own home, because nothing else really matters, you know. I used to tell people, when I leave police work in 2 years, they're going to forget my name in the police department. Who was that guy? And they're going to say, you know, but in 5,000 years, my kids will not forget, because eternity depends on what I do with them, good and bad. Good and bad. So I either live the faith and I either share with them, and ultimately they're responsible for following God. But I don't want to be, you know, have to stand before God someday and say, you know, I didn't do this for my child, I didn't do this, I didn't do this. You know, I want to have a clear conscience that I've done everything I can do to point them to the Lord and to walk with God and stuff like that. And you know, it's just forever they'll remember. You know, the job, all work, and all that stuff fades away, but those relationships do not.
That's right.
You know, they're there forever. You know, so that's when we're trying to prioritize what's important. I can get another job, can't get other kids. Can't redo that. You can't hit the reset button. First things first.
Great insights.
Thank you.
So tell me, how do you weave Christianity into your novels?
Very carefully. Now, there's a spiritual element. I had the ability to be, I was a police officer 5 years before I got saved. So I got to see what that looked like before and after.
Okay.
And any kind of crime, especially a homicide or any kind of crime like that, there's a spiritual component to it. You can't remove it.
Right.
So what I try to do is accurately detail it. You know, there's evil, there's good, there's people trying to do the right thing and those who aren't. But it's actually pretty easy to weave a spiritual message in there because it's already there. You know, it's inherent in the whole struggle of good versus evil, trying to make sense of tragedy. Because like I say, oftentimes very bad things happen to very good people, very godly people have suffered. And you know, to ask, if you go through that as a police officer, when I would go to crime scenes and stuff, and even other officers who weren't Christian, all that, we always ask ourselves, well, why does stuff like this happen? You know, what's the nature of evil? Why are people like this? Well, as Christians, we only have the real best explanation. You know, there's sin, there's fallenness, there's brokenness, and in this world, you know, we're going to have troubles. Jesus tells us that.
Yes.
But he also says he's overcome the world. So we have the best answer for all these things. So it would be natural that it would come into mystery and suspense in any kind of novel, but especially there because the divide of good and evil can be so sharp in a story that it must appear.
Wow. Do you have a website where people can go to find out about your books?
I do. It's www.copwriter.com. A lot of thought went into that. Copwriter, well, because nobody can say my name. It's markmynheir.com also, but nobody can say it or spell it. So I thought, well, copwriter would probably work better. Yeah,
okay, copwriter.com. And are you working on a new novel right now?
I'm actually working on a nonfiction book and a novel proposal. I want to do a devotional for police officers. So.
Oh, what a wonderful thing.
Yeah, so we're hoping that'll take shape too. It's early. It's been on my mind for a while, but it's in the early stages right now. So.
Okay. Well, I think your wife is very blessed to have a man who puts God first and who cares about her needs. And I just applaud you for...
You're very kind, but I'm the blessed one, and I mean that. She's the reason I came to Christ and everything. So I've just been very blessed with a wonderful wife and, you know, wonderful kids. And God's just, you know, I couldn't ask for any more. But a lot of it is just I really have a fantastic wife who's stuck with me through difficult times. And police work is difficult.
Yeah.
It's hard on them because when one of us gets hurt, they're the ones who always have to clean up the mess. You know, so my heart goes out to all police officers' wives, but my wife's great. So.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being our guest. And people look for his book, The Corruptible, and his other books, Mark Mynheir or copwriter.com. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.